Good afternoon, listeners. Welcome to another edition of Your Health Matters. I'm Sharmain Granger. Co-hosting the program with me is my colleague, Miss Rehanna Ramsay. As you may know, this program is one that brings to you facts about various health issues. In studio today, we have a medical practitioner who is here to share some facts you need to know about blood donation in wake of COVID-19. Before we get into our discussion, Ms. Ramsay, please introduce our guest to our listeners.
Good afternoon, listeners. I'm Rehanna Ramsay, and joining us today is Dr. Pedro Lewis, a practitioner at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation who specializes in hematology, the study of medicine, and the treatment of blood. But before we go into our program, we would let our guest tell you a bit more about himself and his portfolio. Go ahead, Dr. Lewis.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon to your viewers. It's a pleasure to be here on the Forest Health Program on Kaieteur Radio. So it's a pleasure to have me here. Okay, I'm Dr. Pedro Lewis. I'm the Director of the National Blood Transfusion Service attached to the Ministry of Health. And I have, of course, MD, medical doctor degree, along with a postgrad degree in immunohematology and blood banking. So I'm at the blood bank December past 22nd of December, made 5 years at the National Blood Transfusion Service.
Just give us a little bit more. I know that you have been instrumental in getting the blood bank up and running, doing a lot of sensitization work, and getting the public to donate more blood. Could you, in a nutshell, tell us how important blood transfusion is to the health sector?
Wonderful question. Yes, the National Blood Transfusion Service, as we know, the central site located in the Georgetown Public Hospital, that's Ramsay East Street. We also have other collection sites like in Region 2. We have collection sites in Region 3, collection sites in Region 6, collection sites in Region 9, and we also in Region 10. So blood, of course, is very, very important. You will hear about maternity patients, chronic anemia patients. All those patients depend on blood, especially or critical patients in emergency cases, the maternity patients. These are patients, when they need blood like yesterday. So that is why it's very, very important to promote voluntary blood donation, because voluntary blood donation guarantees you to have blood in storage right across the country so that these patients could have blood readily available.
So,
If I can cut in just a little bit, Doctor. COVID took a lot of countries by surprise. When Guyana got its first case and eventually a few more cases, how did the blood bank prepare to deal with such cases? I mean, did you realize that this is something we need to put different measures in place for to deal with?
Wonderful question. Of course, COVID hit practically everybody in surprise. The blood bank too, of course, and not only Guyana, various other countries, especially in Latin America, who depends a lot on voluntary blood donation. So when it hit us in March, we had cancellation practically every single of our blood drive that was planned in 2019. So we had to react, and we had to react fast. We put system in place, however. Imagine your population is scared to come out their houses. Imagine we still have the various hospitals, private and public hospital, that is depending on this blood bank to give them this blood product, because you never know what could happen. So we had to adjust, and we had to adjust really fast. So what we did, knowing that 80% of our voluntary donors located in Region 4 and Region 3, and this is a population that, we had most of our cancellation of our blood drive. So we stretch out. We went out to the regions and we implement what you call community blood drive. This is for the first time we did it, where we went house to house, especially in the rural regions like Region 5, Region 2. And we sensitize persons at their location. That means at their house. And we then plan the blood drive to be collected at the health centers. This is a primary health care level. So person felt comfortable going to the health center rather than going to the hospital. So put me in their position, I would have felt the same way. So we know for a fact that person won't want to go to the hospital. So we convince them to go to the health center. And there where we collect most of our blood. However, persons in Region 4 weren't so comfortable going to the organization and donate. Because remember, at that particular point of time, most private institution and organization, we adjust the working time too. Most of the staff was at home and so on. So we had to use the telephone. We have our database. We know our voluntary donors. So we call them back. When we did call them back, of course, persons share concerns about walking through the hospital. So most of those donors never actually came to the institution and donate, so they don't really know where the location of the blood bank. So when we convince them that we are just on Lamar Street, where you just come in through the gate and you reach the blood bank is right there, most persons came in and donate. So we found that most persons came in-house and donate rather than donate in an institution.
And this is done on the COVID-19 guidelines, of course. I mean, your staff would have had to practice certain precautionary measures like hand washing and so on.
Of course, because they share the concern too.
Mm-hmm.
They ask us what you have in place. We use the opportunity to let them know what we had in place for them. And we convinced them and they came in. So we had more than half our donors that came in-house and donate rather on blood drive.
You would have the stats, so you would know how many new donors. Can you say if there were any new, a certain amount of new donors this year as compared to the years before?
Great question.
Or were they the repeat donors?
Excellent. So we had more new donors in 2020 than any other years because remember we went to person houses. So most of the persons that you visited, that we visited in 2020 most of them were new donors. So I mean this is good because you could now convince those persons to continue donating in 2021. So we took that as a plus. This is not something that this is something that we had in plan in 2019 to start in 2020, but we had to activate it very fast. So this is a way that you get more person into the system, and as long as a person donates once, it's very important. You know you are afraid you're getting them to donate on the second time.
So they become more comfortable.
Exactly. Once you treat them right, of course.
And by treating them right, can you give us like an example? Say I'm a first-time donor. What are some of the things that I would need to know? Is there like a screen? I know there's a screening process.
Right.
What are some of the questions that I would have to face, or what are some of the information that I have to provide before I donate blood?
Right. Good question. Most persons, when they hear about donating blood, the first thing comes to their mind is the needle. Right? A lot of persons scared of the needle, but we wish that we could extract the blood in some other means other than using the needle. But as long as you donate once and they realize that it's not that painful, that you would thought it's that painful, they look at the needle size and all of that. So as long as somebody donates the first time, they will come back the second time. Of course, you got to eliminate certain things. You got to be professional. You got to explain to them what a certain risk and so on in terms of a lot of persons feel that you get blacked out and all of that. So you have to clear up those doubts in your mind. It's not something that happens with every single donor. It's like 0.001% of the donors may faint. Most of those persons probably didn't eat anything in the morning before they come. So this is what you explain to them. So when a donor comes and you ask them, you have anything to eat? Even if you don't have anything to eat in the morning, a glass of water just before donation is very good. Most times person back to because of anxiety, right? So even if somebody is there to hold their hands and so on, this is something very good. It also most frequent in the first-time donors, of course, because of anxiety and so on. So those are the little things that you explain to them. You get somebody to comfort them. The donor attendant have a conversation with them during the process. That is good to keep them calm. And you eliminate that. So it's something real scarce at the blood bank. And of course the environment too. Make sure that it's not too hot. You have ventilation, proper ventilation, and so on for those particular donors. There's a reason why your foot is up too, so it allows the blood to flow to your brain and to your organs. So those little things are very, very important. And your surprised person may come back after they finish. Well, this is not so hard as we thought, and they return.
I would have asked a question before, but I was getting specifically at, I read somewhere that you were asked certain questions before you donate blood. What are some of these questions? Can you share with us?
Okay. So very important. We ask you personal questions as it relates to your lifestyle.
Yes.
Not because we don't want you to donate, but it's because we try to eliminate risk.
Okay.
As everybody knows that every disease, every infectious markers, there's a window period, right? For example, if somebody is to detect probably hepatitis B today, right? The test that we use would pick it up tomorrow, right? So if we ask you certain questions, like for example, ear patient, you have a ear patient today, we give you a period of time to come back where we know we cover the window period. So if you do a test, you know that you will pick up if a person have hepatitis B. It's not that we tell you that you have hepatitis B, it's that we try to eliminate the risk. And this is one of the most important aspects of blood banking. Not the test, it's the questions that we ask you. So we ask you various questions so as to eliminate the risk of you transmitting to somebody. So if you get deferred, it's not a big thing you get deferred. You get deferred for your patient. You come back next. I know a lot of persons take it personal, say that we ask them,
Yes.
But picture your relative in the hospital who have to receive this unit of blood.
So it's very important.
So it's very, very important that we ask you the questions and you answer them honestly. So we probably ask you a range of questions that probably come back to the same thing. But the way we structure it is very simple so that person may understand. And we want the person to understand too that we're not asking you this question because we just want to ask you the questions, but our focus is on the safe side. There's a reason why a person come in 3-4 times in a year to donate. Those are safe persons.
Okay.
There's a reason why we promote and we spend a lot of money on voluntary, repetitive donors, right? So a person coming to us 3-4 times a year is excellent for the blood bank and excellent for the patient who will receive such units of blood.
The blood bank has often been faced with shortage of blood.
Okay.
Has that gotten worse or improved with COVID-19, given the fact that you're doing home visits as well?
Yeah, I like that question because the availability of blood doesn't only lie on the blood bank. The blood bank is just a small portion of the blood system. There's other things that's supposed to be happening in the hospital that give you that balance between the blood bank within the system. So when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, not only the blood bank made changes, the hospitals also made changes in which they postponed the elective surgery. Elective surgeries, these are surgeries that could wait, right? So their focus mainly at that particular point was on emergency cases, right? If their focus at that particular point was on emergency cases, for example, like I noted before, maternal mothers and so on. So it didn't actually affect us a lot because the hospital made changes also.
Okay.
So you have to remember that we're in a system,
Yes.
and there got to be an equilibrium between what the hospital do and the blood that we collect.
So,
Are our donors currently voluntary donors, strictly voluntary donors?
Of course, 98% of our donors at the National Blood Transfusion Service are voluntary donors. That's something remarkable. 78% of our donors are repetitive donors. These are donors that come at least twice a year. There's a number that's high throughout Latin America. And imagine 8 out of 10 persons come to the blood bank donated twice already for the year. So it's remarkable.
So, given the repetitiveness of your donors, could you say, is it something? So, can you say list some of the health benefits of somebody who? Because most people would think donating blood, you're taking from yourself and you're giving out.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know if these persons would have certain health benefits that we don't know about. Donating blood has its own. Can you share with us?
Yeah, I could give you some of the information that they share with us, because of course some of it is subjective. So the thing is, imagine, and this is just 78% of the donors who came twice already for the year. We have persons donating 4 times and so on for the year, and these are persons who have over 100 units already in the blood bank, and they will tell you they feel healthy, they sleep well at night. Donating blood remove cholesterol. That's the bad fat. That person may test now and then when they feel a little dizziness. They go and they check, and the doctor tell them the cholesterol high. So donating blood takes out that excess fat, right?
Okay.
I mean, women are fortunate that it's being removed every month with their cycle and so on. And imagine you donating blood, that is just adding to that.
Yes.
Men on the road don't have that advantage, right? So donating blood give them that option of removing cholesterol, right?
So it's better for men.
No,
It's more beneficial.
both, right? So
Okay.
I think it works both way, and it keeps you healthy in terms of it gives you fresh cells because you donate blood. It stimulates the bone marrow to produce more red blood cells and replace those old ones that you give out. You just give the blood bank the old ones. Somebody gonna use it and benefit from it, and you just come and donate.
Doctor, have any of your regular donors been diagnosed with COVID-19?
Great question. To date, no one has called us and say they had flu-like symptoms of COVID-19 symptoms after donating at the blood bank. Remember, donating blood only takes 15 minutes. 15 minutes, you're in and you're out, right? The longest process is probably the extraction. It probably take 8 to 10 minutes when you sit in the chair. And when you finish, you feel okay, you're out. There's no way you're there and you gaffing and you have a need to, express yourself with somebody and all of that. So you come in, you register at the desk, go in, the staff social distance, ask you the questions, into the chair, you donate. As long as you feel okay, you drink your vitamin and you're out.
Currently, Guyana has just over 6,000 persons who have recovered from COVID-19. Can a person who has recovered from COVID-19 be eligible to give blood?
A good question too. So, you know that we had participated in the experimental treatment of the convalescent plasma that is still being used. That is collecting the antibodies from patients that were infected with the COVID-19 virus. So, as long as you've been infected and after the 14 days, right, and there's no symptoms, we then extract the plasma and we made it available to persons. At a particular point in time, we will average that. We'll estimate that you have the antibodies that could probably help somebody to fight off this virus, right? And you recover at that particular point in time.
And how
right? So after you donated the plasma, 3 months after you could return and donate blood as normal, right? So 3 months after, you could donate blood as normal. As to date, there's no information, no data suggests that someone could get this virus by blood transfusion. No data. It's a respiratory illness. You could get it through the act of transfusion from person to person, but you cannot get it through blood transfusion, right? You just cannot get it through blood transfusion, right? You may get the antibodies, but you cannot get the virus through blood transfusion, right? So you could get the antibodies with the convalescent, in the case of the convalescent plasma that I explained, that we have a protocol for that. And 3 months after, you could return and donate blood.
In terms of the administration of the convalescent plasma, could you explain what role the blood bank plays? I know that you would probably collect the blood, but in terms of screening it, I don't know, you'll have to just share with us what is the role, and could you say, I don't know if you would have the stats as to how many persons would have recovered as a result of being administered?
That we collected. Okay, good. So the National Blood Transfusion Service, our responsibility is to collect, screen, and redistribute. So it's a similar process, just like a normal blood donation. It's just that in this case, the person had COVID-19. So the person still have to go through the process of screening where we ask the same questions, right? Depends on the answer, we defer you or we allow you to donate. We still do all the normal tests on you, HIV, HTLV, Chagas, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and so on. Of course, if you're positive for those cases, we don't use the plasma. So they go through the same process, right? Same process as a normal donation. The only thing that is different is that this is a person that had the COVID-19 virus. That's it. And we distribute. So far, we probably collect about 70-something units of convalescent plasma.
And
right, of course, we distribute it to persons who are in the ICU and being transfused. That's about it. We know we just distribute, and the doctors do the transfusion, and the nurses do the transfusion. And that is, of course, it's not just, these patients wouldn't be receiving just convalescent plasma. They receive other treatment that the routine study too that show that it works on these patients.
We'll go to a short break, and when we come back, Doctor will tell us a whole lot more about COVID-19 and blood donation.
Kaieteur Radio, keeping you informed.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Burby's 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Live with Team MMR. Team MMR. 3 p.m. Monday to Friday on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Nationwide broadcast on Facebook Live. Music. Never stop. The afternoon high boys are back. The party boss, WRES Selector Andy. Setting your aftertone on Kaieteur Radio.
Join Glenn Lal himself on the Glenn Lal Show. Tell it like it is. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Weekdays at 7:20 p.m. and Sunday at 7 p.m. Tell it like it is.
Welcome back to Your Health Matters. I'm Sharmain Granger. My co-host is Miss Rehanna Ramsay, and we have Dr. Pedro Lewis, the director of the blood bank, with us today. Doctor, on this issue of COVID-19 and the blood bank, could you tell us a little bit about the vaccination? I know you don't know much about that specifically, but Guyana is expecting a vaccine shortly, at least sometime in the near future, I understand. Can a person who is vaccinated, or is there a time frame by which a person can be able to give blood after being vaccinated?
Of course, I do know a lot about the vaccine.
Okay.
I'm part also of the Ibero-America Transfusion Committee. There's a Latin America Transfusion Society. So we are at the point tracking all the vaccines and all the ones that is being confirmed by the FDA and so on, and the different types. I think now we have the Pfizer and the Moderna, but there are others too that's in the pipeline that we're currently tracking as it relates to blood transfusion. So at this particular point of time, I think I could talk about the Pfizer, but as persons, as the vaccine reach into Guyana, there'll be information, especially in the transfusion, in the blood banks, as it relates to those. So persons could donate with those vaccines. I think for the Pfizer, you have to wait 2 weeks after you get the vaccine, and you could donate. So it's just a short period of time after you get this vaccine, you could donate.
How many doses would one person need?
Well, for now, based on the information you may see on the television and so on, for the Pfizer, I think it's 2 dosage person may need after 28 days after the first one. Within 28 days, you have to receive the second one.
So it's 2 weeks after the final dose that the person can give blood again?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's no fear, listeners. Once the vaccine gets here,
you could
once
still
you're
donate.
a regular donor, you're eligible to give blood
Yeah,
2
you could still donate.
weeks after.
It wouldn't affect any of your plans of donating, so you could still donate.
Doctor, please remind persons, because I know, as you said, a lot of people were fearful about giving blood after COVID came to Ghana. Tell us a little bit, or remind our listeners about what makes a person eligible to give blood.
Okay, great question. I don't think, based on our response, I think people started to adjust because judging from March to now, our numbers from like September, see our numbers start increasing in terms of voluntary donors. So I think people learning now how to adapt to the situation because they know how important is blood and blood donation. Voluntary, you always promote voluntary. Like I said, the reason being is that you don't know if you may have a relative that may need blood tomorrow and you donate today. We don't promote persons, although we accept the donation, we don't promote family donation, we don't promote paid donation, we promote voluntary donation. So it's not good that you gotta wait on a moment. Like I tell person, if your wife, you need somebody, is to have obstructive problem right now, like probably a ruptured uterus and so on. If the hospital is to wait on that unit of blood, they will never make it, right? So it's important that everybody who are healthy, who can donate, should donate, right? It's because somebody gonna help you someday, and you gonna help back somebody someday. So it's a case of you giving and you might receive. Probably not you, but probably your relative. So I always explain to persons after, certain situation like this, probably an accident, when they would have received a bunch of products probably the night before or the day before, and then they rush into the blood bank the day after, trying to donate, right? I will usually tell them somebody already saved your relative. You didn't do that. Somebody else did it. So you just here coming to replace, right? So if somebody else just saved your relative, not the blood donation you were making at this point. You should have been doing that all along, right? So it's not good for you to wait until somebody in the hospital, because at that particular point in time you're anxious, some people got to prepare meals, got to come and visit 3 times a day in the hospital, family relative probably overseas on them, and a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure on you. This is not a good time to donate blood. It's not a good time, because at a particular point in time, all you focus on is that this person get well, and that should be it, not to donate blood.
Given the fact that the blood bank is catering to this convalescent program as well as your regular demands, is there currently a shortage of blood? And could you be specific about the types of blood that you usually have a dire need for?
Well, the blood bank always need products. Remember, the products only last for 25 days. So you must have a system that, you're always replacing, right? As it goes, it's replacing. A lot of persons ask you a question, when the time may come that you will stop appealing to person to donate. You deal with something that only have 25 years. I could never stop appealing to person to come and donate, right? This is a process that will always happen. Everybody has a role to play in the blood system. You guys are doing your part right now by getting the word out there. Person out there donating. The hospital got to do their part in managing it. The blood bank got to do their part in screening it and access, get close to persons so that they could donate. So everybody got a part to play, right? And at the end of the day, everybody will benefit from it. So it's not a case that is something that depends wholly and solely on the blood bank. It's that every single person could contribute towards this process. It's something that we're going to always have to do.
All types.
All types of donors are necessary, all types.
So you don't have like a number in mind as to how much?
Okay, so PAU WHO in 2004 did an assessment of how much units of blood that is sufficient in the country, and they came up with a number between 10,000 to 12,000 units of blood, right, that we work towards every year.
And how many persons would need to donate for you to reach that?
Okay, so it not only depends on how many persons, it depends on how many time you donate to, right? So it depends on how many time you donate. A lot of persons may donate probably 1 year and they fall out the system for some other reasons. That's why it's very, very important when person comes to the blood bank, they get proper treatment, You treat them well, not in the sense that, you give them money and give them fancy things and all of that. You treat them in such a way that when they leave the blood bank, they feel comfortable to come back to you. This is a service. I usually tell myself it's a service that you have to be better than the Eurosis and so on, in the Europeans and so on that you travel with. Because you're correcting something that cannot be bought. You're correcting something that it cannot be manufactured, right? The only way you could get it is from human being.
Has the blood bank ever reached anywhere close to that 10,000 units
Well,
target?
on a normal basis, we collect between that range, between the 10,000 mark and the 12,000 mark. But we last year we now have staff located in the regions, right? So we keep improving every year to get closer to persons. Usually it used to be just like like I told you before, most of the donors used to come from region 4 and region 3. Now we're seeing a very good increase in region 6 because region 6 now is just extending to region 5, like for the community blood drive like I spoke to you about. So there's no reason why person can donate. We coming to you. We're getting close to you. So region 4 is easy because of all these businesses that we have and person working. It's easy to, collaborate with these organizations, right? GRA and all the schools and so on. It's very simple to collaborate with these organizations. In the regions now, you will recognize that there's not much organization there other than the churches that we, church, Mandir, the Majin and so on that we collaborated with. Beside that too, we go to persons' houses and do sensitization. So we could encourage them to come to the health centers or the primary health care. So we don't want to give person excuse like, y'all never come to me, and no. We're making sure that we give everybody an opportunity to do this, right? There's no reason. Of course, people may have their personal reasons, like person will know that they're infected and so on to a particular infection marker, and they can't donate. That is understandable. I mean, you have person who's infected, I know, of person who will want to donate, but it just can't because of their personal reasons, right? And there are person that can do it and don't want to do it. Right? So the person who is dying to do it because they know the importance, but they just can't.
Yes. You would have, in your year-end presentation to the Pan American Health Organization virtual campus on public health, you spoke about some figures about the sharp reduction in the blood donation and when the blood donation began to resuscitate again. Can you give us some of those figures?
Yeah, so between the month of March to around like September, we had a reduction, like an average about 25% in that particular period of time. But at the end of the year, we saw a reduction of about 23%, right, in total, which I mean, we're so happy for. We work hard. And like I said before, by the hospital reduce the amount of elective surgery that they did, that compensated that. So we make sure that, there's blood there for emergency cases, like maternity cases, like accident victim to a certain extent, like thalassemia cases, like sickle cell patients and so on. So that compensates for that. So you will see now that the ministry will start the elective surgery. So we have all those cases in 2020. Those persons who didn't get to receive the surgery will have to receive that in 2021. So we have to prepare, and we already start buckling up so that we could get those surgeries to those persons. We still have heart surgery. I don't think we had any heart surgery last year. So elective surgeries like those were postponed. So that helped the blood bank a lot.
In blood donation, you collect blood and you collect other specimens including plasma. Could you share with us the other types of useful elements that are found in blood that that you usually collect. And for persons who don't know what plasma is, could you share with our listeners?
Okay, so plasma is so beside the pack cells, the red pack cells that person know about, the red blood cells that we collected, we call it pack cells, because what we do, we take out the liquid part of the blood, right, which is the plasma, the yellowish substance, the liquid part, that will have antibodies like I spoke about to fight the convalescent, to fight the COVID-19 patients, and proteins and clotting factors, right? You will find that in the plasma, right? The red cell, that is packed. This is a cellular component. That goes to a person who's breathing that need oxygen to the different organs to keep them alive. The plasma that we extracted, we could then make cryoprecipitate, where you just concentrate the clotting factors together.
And that's called the platelets? Is that the
No.
platelets? Okay.
That's a cryoprecipitate. In that too, you could have the platelets, right? So you further break that down into platelets, right? It's not much platelets, but you break that down into platelets, right? So, and then you have another portion of plasma, which wouldn't have the platelets, which wouldn't have the cryoprecipitate. They will have the protein, right? And a certain amount of other clotting factors like factor 5 and so on. So you see how many components you could get from one unit of blood. So all of that could go to different patients and you will save their lives, right? So you could have several platelets, like what I just explained, from different individuals, and you bring it together, right, to make it sufficient for a particular patient. Those are pool platelets. We call it pool platelets. We bring it together, right? You could also pool cryoprecipitate clotting factors from different individuals. You bring it together. This pool cryoprecipitate is a person who's suffering from hemophilia disease that's probably absent factor 8 or factor 7. So you bring that together and you could treat those persons with that. Right?
The hemophilia diseases, what are those? Can you break
There's
that down?
breathing disorders. Breathing disorders
Right.
where persons lack the factor. So when you lack the factor that is responsible for clotting, right, you breathe. Breathing disorders. Those persons may benefit from the cryoprecipitate.
Okay, so that would include persons who would, let's say, somebody who is on chemotherapy and their blood is thinning in.
Okay, person on chemotherapy, they could benefit from the platelets, right? Because of the treatment and so on, it may damage the platelets and so on. So they could benefit from the platelets also from us. So there's a wide host of diseases that benefit from blood and blood products. Sickle cell patients also, we know in those cases the red cell, the lifespan of the red cell shortens and so on. So they will need pack cell after certain, it depends on the individual. They will need a transfusion every 2 months, every 3 months and so on. So it's very important that you always have product for them when you need. But these are cases that is chronic anemia. You don't have to wait until the person HB is way down before you could transfuse them. You could put them on a program and you could transfuse them. Because you know for a fact they will need transfusion. So those are the types of product. What we're looking towards to now is product where you take out the white cell. This is for knowledge. The person may have transfusion and after 24 hours they get a bit cold sweat and so on. This because fever and cold sweat is because of the white cell producing something you call cytokines that is responsible for the fever. So what we're looking at now is to take out the white cell from these blood products, right? So as to prevent that. So the doctors may not have to give the put them on prophylactic periton or hydrocortisone and so on. So we could take out the white cells so as to prevent them from this delayed transfusion reaction that you may have, right? So we're looking towards that. What we produce also is wash cells. We wash all the antibodies and stuff from the cells and give it to an individual. This is probably for somebody who have a low level of immunoglobulin A that could cause allergic reaction, right? I don't think anybody ever requests that, but the aim of the blood bank is to make available all type of products, right? So that, wherever the doctor may request, we have it.
Doctor, if I can go off topic a little bit, just for a short while. A few years ago, the blood bank acquired a multi-million-dollar machine.
Oh.
Is it still functional?
Wonderful.
And what is it being used for?
Right. So that machine is a apheresis or apheresis platelet machine. So what it does is that it extracts wherever you need, right? And where you don't need, it returns back to the patient. So we use it for platelet extraction because we found that at a particular point in time, still happens, especially for cancer patients, these patients may need a large quantity and quality platelets, right? So instead of you having to take 28 platelets or 24 units of platelets from 24 different persons, right? You could probably get that platelets from one individual from the machine. So this do a lot of things. It prevents aluminization because remember, you were putting 24 different antigens into one individual, right? And eventually that person may react, right? Where you could just get it from one individual, right? So that increases the quality and it increases the quantity. And you get 6 times the amount of platelets that you may probably get from one person, right? So it reduces something we call aluminization, right? And it also improves the quality and improves the quantity of platelets. So one transfusion increases the platelets of the individual, and the individual go home. However, donors for this particular purpose that I'm speaking about is now is getting donors are increasing because the machine person got to adapt. The time it takes at least 90 minutes, right? The process takes at least 90 minutes, right? In some cases it takes like 45 minutes. But donors are increasing for this particular purpose.
How many donors so far?
Well, using the machine, we don't like, what I must say, on a daily basis, we won't let a lot of person go and donate because it's only on request. If the doctor requests it, we donate. Because remember, this process is very, very expensive, right? And we can't afford to waste it as long as you donate it. Because it's not like every time the doctor may request this particular product, right? So what happened, they could be on the normal platelets, if it's an urgent case or whatever it may be on the normal platelets, and then they may say this working very slow or it ain't working or whatever the case may be, and then we call back a donor and put them on the machine.
If I recall correctly, persons were supposed to be trained to use this machine.
Wonderful.
Were persons also trained in the maintenance of the machine as well, or do we
Right,
need persons to
right.
come in to maintain it?
No, the same person that we bought the machine from, they maintain it. So it's a specialized equipment that is being maintained on a quarterly basis.
And I don't know if I missed it, the number of persons that have already been utilized. That
All
have
my
been,
staff in the transfusion department, they utilize, in terms of donors that we collect,
donors,
yes,
yeah.
I can't say, but we have quite a few donors that use it. Like I
But
said,
isn't a regular thing.
yeah, it's regular, but we don't collect a large amount at one time. We don't collect a large amount, but we do it a lot, but we don't collect like 6 or 7 donors a day. It based on request. We do it. It's very helpful. That machine has saved us a lot. It has saved the public, because most of the times when you use to open the paper, you use to hear persons, appealing to persons to come. Most of the time when you hear blood, it's not blood, it's platelets, because they need just large amount of platelets, right? So you need to like call in so many persons, 24 persons to get 24 platelets. You don't have to do that anymore, right?
So
you get 1 or 2 persons and they give you the amount of platelets you
Because
need.
of this machine.
Because of the machine. So now you don't see like before. When I came on in 2015, every 3 months you used to see in the newspaper or on Facebook persons, making alarms about the needed places. Even now in the regions, because the regions, probably most doctors in the region don't know that you have this particular equipment that could do this. So relative panic and go to the newspaper. But when I do follow up on it, I said, no man, you don't need, and they call back and said the person. I said, no, you don't need all of those persons, you just need 2 persons. And we put it in the machine and you get the platelets that you need.
You said it's an expensive process. What makes it expensive?
The consumables. The consumables is expensive. The consumables are very expensive. So you have to just make it work, right? You can't just waste it. The consumable is expensive, but it's very, very, very useful. Very, very useful for the public. Very, very useful.
Okay, we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll wrap up the program. Welcome back to Your Health Matters. I'm Sharmain Granger. Miss Ramsay here is co-hosting with me, and we have in studio Dr. Pedro Lewis. Miss Ramsay, please, your final question to Dr. Pedro.
Dr. Pedro, we were so happy to have you on here with us today to tell us about COVID-19 and blood transfusions. It was very interactive and informative time, and I just wanted to, because I know that you have, given the demand, you have started your blood drives again, and you're supposed to be having a number of drives during the month of this month in particular, in keeping with National Blood Donation Month. So I just wanted you to share with us some of the details of that activity and who's eligible to take part, because earlier in the program you would have referred to collaborating with religious organizations, but you could just give us more as to who can be a part of your drive, and just share with us. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Thank you for the opportunity to share too, because remember now, without the people, we cannot have blood. So I'm always happy to interact with the public, and every opportunity I get, I always like to thank the voluntary donors. You guys don't know how special you are. And of course, wishing them a happy new year and so on. Sorry I didn't say that before. So we started putting persons on our calendar for January and February. February, of course, is the month that we have our huge blood drive at the Marian's Academy. We usually collect about 300 plus units on that weekend. We're going to do it. I mean, this year is different, so we have to plan it well, so as all protocol is being observed, all the COVID-19 protocol is being observed. We have to be very quick, very fast and efficient on our blood drive. And not only in Region 4 also, we already started in Region 6 and the other regions too. So anybody, any organization could collaborate with us. We have more than 350 organizations in Region 4 that collaborate with the National Blood Transfusion Service. I know everybody is at the moment back at work, and even if you still have the rotation process going on in these organizations, we could facilitate the rotation process. Even if we have to come twice a week at a particular organization, we will do it. This is how important blood is, and blood product is to the National Blood Transfusion Service. So we can collaborate with everybody. You just have to call us, get the persons who have to donate the venue, and you could donate. At the moment, I can't say the amount of drive we have so far for January, but we have a few blood drive. You could call us on, of course, 226 7182, right? Or 226 9022. Or you could go on our Facebook page, National Blood Transfusion Service of Guyana, and you will see all the personal contact if persons have any problem, if they have any concerns. You could hook us up on Facebook. Somebody will respond to you quickly in a flash. So you could come organize your drive. Remember, organizing a blood drive won't cost you anything, right? It don't cost you anything. If persons want to chip in terms of refreshments and all of that, you could do that. But the National Blood Transfusion Service give the Vitamalt. Thanks on behalf of Bank ZIH. We give you crackers, chairs, and so on to do the blood drive. Probably you might gotta provide a little table or so. But the most important thing for you is just find the persons, and we will be there. And the location, we will be there. If you don't have a location, you could use our center, the National Blood Transfusion Center. Person use it a lot. They come and they decorate it how they want to decorate it and so on. We don't have a problem with that. And they use right in our center. The donors come and donate right there on behalf of the particular organization. So there's no cost attached to the individual. We don't want to burden persons or organizations.
So that will bring us to the end of our program. So I'd just like to say thank you once again, Dr. Lewis. You have been very helpful and very edifying to our listeners and even to me about blood transfusion and how it affected us, and some of the things that we should know going forward. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. I hope I could return sometime.
Of course.
Of course.
Thanks, no problem.
We've come to the end of our program today, but before we go, I need to remind you listeners of a biblical proverbs that I take very seriously. It's Proverbs 18:21. In part, it says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." This simply means that we can either say good things about people and build them up, or say bad things about them and tear them down. I pray you choose life over death today. Until next time, I'm Sharmain Granger. On behalf of myself and co-host, Miss Rehanna Ramsay, do have a blessed rest of the week.